But problem 4 with PSA is if God punished Jesus for sin, then sin cannot truly be forgiven or is not truly forgiven. Now, what does that mean? Well, ultimately, God is not about punishing anything, and forgiveness is not a result of punishment. It's a result of the grace of God and the mercy of God. So to counter that position that PSA says that God punished Jesus, forgiveness by definition is choosing not to retaliate or seek payment from an offending party. So God does not seek payment. He releases forgiveness freely and unconditionally. The Bible clearly states that sins were forgiven at the cross, that sin as a noun was forgiven at the cross, and you can find no scriptures that clearly say sin was punished at the cross. It doesn't actually say that because it didn't happen. But you might have heard it says that. So believing that God had to punish sin instead of forgive sin only produces fear, doubt, insecurity, and anxiety regarding the God that you're now supposedly in a relationship with. And during my time in ministry, in helping people and ministering to people over the years, the sort of lack of assurance of salvation was a huge issue, that people were never sure that they were good enough or that they were behaving well enough for God to love them, because love wasn't unconditional. For that concept, love was conditional on their behavior. So if you have that insecurity, what happens the next time you sin? What happens the next time you mess up, make a mistake, act according to your old identity? And sometimes we default to that mindset and belief system, and we have programmed belief systems in our mind that God is renewing so that we can know the truth. So if we default to an old behavior pattern or mindset, how sure are you that God won't change his mind and begin punishing you if he sees punishment as a result of sin? And I think that keeps people in bondage to fear of God, actually, not in a right sense of reverence and honor and respect for God, but actually fearing him because you're afraid he might punish you. PSA claims that God's justice will not allow him to just forgive sin. Instead, his wrath must be poured out on an innocent, in this case Jesus, and his justice be satisfied so he can forgive the guilty, us. So God's justice actually is not based on that concept. God's justice is based on the verdict that's based on the cross. So when we think of justice in a normal setting of the court, when the verdict is given, if the verdict is not guilty, then justice is the person gets set free. If the verdict is guilty, then the person gets the sentence, which is justice based on the verdict. Now, we've all been declared not guilty. Therefore, forgiveness is justice. And those who hold to penal substitutionary atonement intensely try and separate God and his justice from God and his love. And both of them are actually an outworking of the same. Forgiveness is of sin, and sin being lost identity, through Christ is the core gospel message. That message is announced by the apostles in the Bible. You can read that in many different things. In Acts 3:38, for instance, I want you to know that through Jesus, the forgiveness of sins is proclaimed to you. It didn't put on a whole load of conditions on that. It was proclaimed to you. And who was it through? Jesus, and therefore what Jesus did on the cross. Ephesians 1:7, in him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses. 1 John 2:12, your sins are forgiven for his name's sake. Acts 10:43, everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. Matthew 26:28, for this is my blood, the blood of my covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Now, some people will say, oh, it says many, not all. Well, many doesn't mean there isn't all. It just says many. It's a description of many. It means all, but it's using many. So people who say, well, when it says many, it doesn't mean all, they're taking it out of context. So the truth, when we look at this idea of justice and punishment, is that Jesus redefined our understanding of God's justice through his life, death, and resurrection. And you'll see that Jesus never condemned anybody. Yes, he challenged people, and yes, he challenged their religious mindsets and belief systems, but he still wanted to gather them. He still wanted them to come into a relationship with him. So through Jesus's life, death, and resurrection, the full package, God's justice is revealed. And it's revealed in that Jesus only came to demonstrate the love of God. And he did demonstrate the love of God in how he lived and how he interacted with people. God forgave sin in the body of Jesus. Another way to say this is that he removed it. He sent it away in the body of Jesus. So Jesus took it to the grave, overcame it, and came back victorious, having conquered death. Because the wages of sin, now lost identity, is death. Now, death in this instance means separation from life, from our alienation of our own mind. God never separated from us, but we certainly separated from him, and we walked away from the abundant life that was present in our relationship with God, and we then had to find life in ourselves. So when Jesus died, the power of sin died with him. He broke the power of our lost identity to deceive us so we can know the truth. So God's judgment, his verdict, is not guilty, it's innocent. Therefore, we are justified and made righteous. If you enjoy these videos, would you please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe? It really does help. Thank you very much.